the accountability thing is another big thing, because it's basically like, the analogy I use for this is like the Wizard of Oz, like AI is the ultimate Wizard of Oz for the ruling class. Like, they can just literally do whatever they want and say, oh, well, we're just doing what the AI algo said, and it's so smart, and it can't. This is in the Schmidt-Kissinger book too. It's so smart, it can't explain itself. We just have to do what it says because it's so smart.
That is
Okay.
wild. Okay.
No, because I mean, if it can't explain itself, it can't justify its actions, and everyone has to essentially, through blind faith and some sort of like religious like devotion, believe that it's smarter without proof, because it's being hyped as that, and just basically outsource how we perceive reality and events to like algorithms being designed by these Silicon Valley crazy people.
One thing that I think is confusing is it literally says in the title open AI. And one thing that we have in the Bitcoin space we talk about is that a lot of the other tokens are decentralized in name only, dinos or dinos. And so it sounds like a lot of AI is open in name only. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, OpenAI is like not an open source company. Like, they don't make it clear, like, their algorithms and all that stuff are like not transparent. So yeah, I mean, it's open in name only, for sure in that case. And I think a lot of people too just like see OpenAI as like its own thing, but really it's essentially like Microsoft at this point. So it's like part of the big tech thing. And Microsoft is involved with a lot of weird stuff going on with AI, specifically with like Windows. Like, they're essentially saying like, your data is not your data, it's our data. We take your data off of your Windows computer and feed it to our AI. Like, that's a requirement you have to agree to use Windows now. And like, if they decide to lock you out of your Microsoft account for some reason, you lose all of your data. So your data is not your data on Microsoft now. And that is like an awful business model to support, I think. And I hopefully other people feel that way too. Like, I don't want to use Microsoft products if that's how it's going to be, and so OpenAI is like partnered with that same company that's in that same headspace. And ChatGPT is being used for like so much stuff, and is being used to like replace people's jobs and potentially entire industries, specifically like staff writers and like more like low level like news desk people. Like, there's already major publications that have entirely phased out their staff in that sense. I don't think that's something we should really be supporting. I certainly don't. I mean, again, if you want to understand like what these trends are, that like powerful people know these trends and where they expect it to take us, go and read the Henry Kissinger, Eric Schmidt AI book. I mean, they lay it out for everyone. It's not good.
This is where your own Dino framing hits hardest for me. The same way crypto tokens are decentralized in name only, AI is open in name only. Whitney confirms it directly. OpenAI is essentially Microsoft at this point. Algorithms aren't transparent. Windows users now agree by default that Microsoft owns their data, and if a Microsoft account lockout hits, you lose everything. And ChatGPT isn't just answering emails. It's replacing staff writers, desk workers, entire newsrooms. Major publications already laid off full staff. If you want to see where this goes, Whitney points to that Schmidt-Kissinger AI book. They literally laid out the two-tier society roadmap for everyone to read.
Well, and to your earlier point, I mean, the tools are beneficial. It makes things a little bit faster, especially with regards to research, but could you down the road also lose your critical thinking skills and your ability to write? And I thought about that with regards to ChatGPT. One last question I wanted to ask you about AI before we pivot to your recent investigative work about Binance and FTX and CBDCs. I heard actually Vivek Ramaswamy on the campaign trail share something really interesting that goes to the heart of the question about AI. And he said that when he was young, he was a ball boy, and that the players would always argue and say, no, the ball was in. They would argue with the ball boys and with the people making the calls. And then AI came out and the players stopped arguing. And I guess they trusted the software and the artificial intelligence more than people. And so what he said he feared was that it wasn't AI as a tool, it was people's reaction to the AI and the trust that we put into what they're building. Would you agree with that? And how do you want people to look at this? Because again, we're going to have very few options like we do in the social media world and with a lot of these big tech companies. Do we either forego it, or how do we use it responsibly?
Yeah, so I think it's a little more complicated than sort of like this picture Ramaswamy is painting. And there's a lot of different examples of that. So, first off, the AI industry, like any other large industry that has a lot of money being thrown around in it, there's corruption, right? And there's companies that like oversell how effective their AI algos are. So like one example that like I wrote about several years ago was this Israeli company that was hired by Rhode Island during COVID to predictively say when COVID outbreaks would happen before they happen, based on like various metrics from like the Rhode Island Department of Health. And the company said their algorithm was like 75, 76% accurate. But that was never audited. That's like the company's own statistics. So those are probably like buffed up a significant amount. So let's say the real number is somewhere in like the 50% ballpark. That's no better than like flipping a coin, is it?
Whitney doesn't take the easy framing on the Ramaswamy ballboy analogy. She says it's more complicated than regular people just trust AI. She brings back the diagnostics robotics in Rhode Island example. Algorithm claimed 75-76% accuracy, never audited, just company PR. Real number likely 50%. Coin toss. And her question is sharper than the analogy. What happens when government or law enforcement hands power to these algorithms? They aren't vetted. They just have the contract because of connections. Why would AI be different from any other captured industry? That's the scoping problem nobody inside the AI bubble wants to admit.
So like, what are we paying for there? And the big problem is, what happens? It's not so much about like regular people's trust. It's also about like, what happens when the state or like law enforcement or government give AI algorithms power over people's lives that are not accurate and should not be trusted and are not vetted. It's just that company got the contract because they have connections. That happens with every other industry. Why would it not happen with AI? What happens when a company, a facial recognition company with connections to a Silicon Valley billionaire that paid and donated to this politician's campaign or whatever, gets the contract, to do live facial recognition for law enforcement in various counties or an entire state. And, they identify people and it's extremely inaccurate, or it's racially biased, which has been a problem for several years, well known and documented about law enforcement use of facial recognition. Those are big issues. It's actually happened to a very significant degree already in the United Kingdom, where you have, they know, like the Met Police know it's inaccurate and it's causing problems and identifying the wrong people, but they're not going to try and change the company. They're not phasing out live facial recognition. It seems like they don't care it's inaccurate and that accuracy isn't the point. It's more of creating the Foucaultian panopticon where everyone knows they're being watched and so they behave, or they're more likely to behave and more likely to be controlled. And some of these big companies like Palantir, like literally have pictures of Foucault like in their offices and in their promo material and like all of this stuff. Like some of these guys think that way, So AI becomes a lot more complicated. Then it's not just like how regular people down on the bottom levels react to it. It's also like, why is the government and these other entities giving so much power to AI technology that isn't proven and isn't vetted? There's a lot of overhype in AI. We also know that there's accuracy issues with AI. There's a thing, for example, called like AI hallucinations, where it like returns output that just doesn't exist. And then you have people like Kissinger and Schmidt in their book argue that what AI is seeing in those cases is a different reality that just humans can't see, that we should trust in the AI's delusions, essentially, and have that supersede our own perception of reality.
This is the part where my blood goes cold. Live facial recognition companies get contracts through billionaire PAC donations. They're known to be racially biased. UK Met Police knows it's inaccurate and isn't phasing it out. Whitney spells out the logic. Accuracy isn't the point. The point is the panopticon. Everyone knows they're being watched, so everyone behaves. She confirms Palantir literally has panopticon images in their offices and promo. Then the kicker. When AI hallucinates and returns outputs that don't exist, Kissinger-Schmidt say we should trust in the AI's different reality over our own perception. That's literal mass psychosis being marketed as smart.
The accountability thing is another big thing, because it's basically like the analogy I use for this is like the Wizard of Oz, like AI is the ultimate Wizard of Oz for the ruling class. Like they can just literally do whatever they want and say, oh, well, we're just doing what the AI algo said. And it's so smart and it can't, this is in the Schmidt Kissinger book too. It's so smart. It can't explain itself. We just have to do what it says because it's so smart. Okay.
That was wild.
No, because I mean, if it can't explain itself, it can't justify its actions, and everyone has to essentially, through blind faith and some sort of like religious like devotion, believe that it's smarter without proof because it's being hyped as that, and just basically outsource how we perceive reality and events to like algorithms being designed by these Silicon Valley crazy people.
This is the section I keep coming back to, because Whitney hands the viewers a direct line to accountability and immediately pulls it away. She calls out what she sees. AI tooling deciding who lives and who dies in Gaza. Algorithmic targeting field-tested in Ukraine first. RoboCop machine gun on autopilot. No human in the loop saying that's immoral. I'm not pulling that trigger. Then the rogue Tesla factory robot that hurt an employee. The Wizard of Oz ruling class says, we just did what the AI told us. And when AI can't even explain its own logic, we outsource reality perception to people she openly calls Silicon Valley crazy. That's not artificial intelligence. That's manufactured authority with plausible deniability.